Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we be nurtured together today by the knowledge. May we be nourished together. May we strive together to understand. May our learning shine. That is to assimilate the knowledge. May we not quarrel. The goal today is to go through verses from 20, hopefully up to 23. Because we only got a few more verses until chapter 5 ends, and then we begin chapter 6, the Gita, on meditation. Okay? So let's revise verse 19, chapter 5, right? Last week. So remember that Jnana Yoga is between verses 13 and 21, right? So when we finish the verse 21 today, we will be done with Jnana Yoga. In the previous verses, we spoke of discovering your higher self. When I say higher self, of course, I'm talking about Atman. And it contained 2 stages. The first stage, this is now a summary of the verses from 13 to 19. The first stage is, I am not the body-mind. Okay? That's obvious. I'm not this complex that I take myself to be. That's tangible. But consciousness that is pervading the body-mind. Right? Just clear. I'm not the body-mind complex. I am consciousness that is pervading the body-mind complex. And this consciousness that I am is different from the body-mind complex, because it pervades the body-mind complex. That which pervades cannot be that which it pervades. You understand? If something pervades something else, then it cannot be what it pervades. Okay, quiz. So I'll use a Sanskrit. You'll know some words. So let's see who can discover what's the meaning of this statement. Listen. Anatma vyatiriktaha. Remember that word vyatiriktaha? What does vyatiriktaha mean? Other than. So anatma vyatiriktaha. Atma swarupa aham asmi. Okay, aham means what? I. Asmi is, so I am. So aham asmi, I am. So aham asmi anatma swarupaha, I am. Or my nature, swarupa is nature, my nature is Atma. So when I say anatma vyatiriktaha atma swarupa aham asmi, what does that mean? My nature is
different to the body, and I am the Atma.
Yeah. And this statement that I just said is straight from the scriptures. Very beautiful statement. Anatma vyatiriktaha Atma Svarupa Ahamasmi. It's almost like a mantra. Anatma Vyatiriktaha Atma Svarupa Ahamasmi. So in other words, my nature, which is Atma, is different from anatma, other than anatma. Okay, so this is stage 1. Okay, now stage 2. We're still summarizing verses 13 to 19. Stage 2 is I, consciousness, which is pervading this body, is not different than the consciousness that is pervading your body. Okay, why did I say this? Because we often think that awareness or consciousness that I am here is different from your consciousness. No. So this is stage 2 of discovery, higher self. I consciousness, pervading this physical body, am the same consciousness that is pervading that physical body. So, one consciousness pervading many bodies, right? Many bodies, one consciousness. So this means you, when I say you now, I'm talking about Atma, is pervading this body. You are pervading everyone else's body here. You, Atma, are pervading every body in the world. You, Atma, are pervading the plants. You, Atma, are pervading the stones, the rocks, the clouds, the entire creation. If I say you and equate it to Atma. So now you're saying, yeah, but I don't feel like it. Right? What's the answer to that?
Even the dog did it.
Not meant to feel. Not meant to feel.
Excellent. Okay, where does the feeling happen?
In the mind.
I mean, look at it this way. We can't even feel what our own partners are thinking, right? Someone will go, what's on your mind? How are we supposed to think or feel what the entire world is, pervading the entire world? So this idea of experiential mongering, trying to look for an experience, when I say I, consciousness, am pervading all bodies, this experiential need has to go. This is a false notion. It has to go. Okay, so this should be reassuring. Okay, so we've done now 1 and 2, right? When I discover that I am consciousness, then I look at you also as consciousness. This is straight from verse 19. We spoke of whatever you associate I with is how you look at others also. That means if I see myself as a body, then the first value that I will attribute when I look at a person is their body. If I put a lot of attention on my emotions, then I will be attracted to a opposite sex who's also shares the same emotionalities with me. I will look for value in their emotional makeup. They have to be very well balanced in their emotions. Why? Because to me, emotions are important. If I am the type who has intellectual needs or preferences, then I will look for the opposite sex who are in the profession of, let's say, lawyer or technician or mechanic. Why? Because I look for qualities that are important to me in them. So this means that if I see myself as Atma, then similarly I will see them as Atma. Now, Atma has no attributes. How can you give attributes to awareness? So then how can I judge another person if I see them as awareness? If I see them as a body, there's so many things I can judge them with, right? Nose is too big, skin is not tanned enough, the muscles are not big enough, the hip to waist ratio is not perfect enough, the hair is not a particular preference. The list is endless. So that means if I identify with the gross, that means the judgment factor increases. If I identify with that which has no attributes, then it's impossible to judge because awareness has no judgments. So that means that if one ends up judging then you need to identify who's judging this. Is it the mental, the intellectual makeup, or the physical makeup? So that's an inquiry that one can do. And then one can say, what's the point of judging if indeed what I'm judging is also Atma? You see, so these are kind of inquiries that we can do to stop ourselves from seeing others as other than myself. Okay. So this means, the summary is, a radical change in myself equals a radical change in the world automatically. No need to change the world. Impossible. The world doesn't care about my needs, how the world should be. See, well, this Buddha who said it, don't change the world, correct me if I'm wrong, change yourself first, right? Very deep statement. What he's really saying is, the mirror, being the world, reflects your makeup. So don't change the world. Okay, so let's give an example. We're still summarizing verses 13 to 19. Imagine a sentient wave. And we give the sentient wave eyes, right, in the ocean. Then, because it identifies itself with a sentient wave, then how does it look at other waves?
Separate.
Excellent. Separate, other than myself, mortal. So what happens is I then try to compare myself to, this is how I gain my value in the world, by seeing and comparing against other waves. If one wave's big, then I'll try to up myself. If one wave's small, then I gain happiness, how lucky I am to be bigger than that wave. So this idea of seeing ourselves as other than Atma causes big problems. It causes judgment, it causes constant comparison, and comparison does what? It agitates the mind constantly. And what is agitation? Rajas. In other words, I cannot focus my mind single-pointedly and comprehend the knowledge.
So the only reason for my sense of mortality is the seeing of the coming and going of others.
Which confirms that you're seeing yourself also how you're looking at others. So if you're looking at others as mortal, perishable, then that automatically gives away that you see yourself as mortal and perishable. So that's why people are so transparent. You just listen to their words and you see how they're talking about others is exactly how they are themselves. So this is why sometimes bringing up a question can be so revealing. I ask questions. I'm currently with Chinmaya, and I'm constantly asking questions. Whenever I ask the questions, the teachers can instantly pick up the misalignments, right? So there's great value in asking questions because it gives away your own understanding. Okay, now we also said that the wave, which is ignorance, after having gone and sufficiently contemplated on knowledge in a Vedanta class, now becomes a wise wave, right? And this wise wave recognizes that, this is what a wise wave is saying, this waveness that I recognize is incidental only. This form, this waveness that I am, is only incidental. Okay, it's an incidental feature which comes and goes, but the H2O, which pervades me, the wave, stays. And this H2O that pervades me also pervades every other wave. So that means even if this incidental form comes and goes, what stays?
Ocean.
The H2O, the water. So all that the wave did was just change its focus. You understand? That's it. Change focus. Nothing mystical. Okay, now this is also what I'm saying in verse, in this ocean wave, is mentioned in verse 18, where Krishna says, I see myself as Atma and everything else as an incidental attribute, incidental form. So this is a direct speak of a wise person. I see myself as awareness, and everything around me is just incidental. And not just around me, but even the person that's saying I am Atma is also just because it's form. Even the sound is just a bunch of words put together. It's also incidental. It's still form. Okay, such person who's completely assimilated the knowledge can never again come down. Okay, completely assimilated knowledge. Impossible to go back down to lower worldly interests. In other words, such a person won't go to a nightclub again to look for some entertainment or to satisfy oneself. Why? Because they're totally happy with themselves. There is a danger at the beginning while one's still contemplating, but once it's fully assimilated, there's absolutely no possibility of going back into worldly entertainments. Now, we're not saying worldly entertainments are plus or minus. We're just saying the person sees through them. It's anatma. The person's full, so why should I engage in worldly entertainments to find fullness if I'm already full? Okay, so the wise person, we'll finish the summary now. The wise person takes care of their physical body because it's the Lord's property, and you need a physical body to continue contemplating. If a person's sick, then they're not going to keep inquiring, are they? So it's common sense. And they're not obsessed with this incidental, superficial, mortal, 5 elemental form called Stula, Sukshma, Karana, Sharira. Okay? They're not obsessed over the body. Okay, verse 20. Na prahrshyet priyam prapya nodvijet prapya cha priyam sthira buddhira samutha brahmavid brahmani sthitaha. Okay, we'll just read this quickly. The one who knows Brahman, who is established in Brahman, whose knowledge is firm, who is free from delusion, that one would not rejoice over gaining that which is desirable, nor would he resent gaining that which is not likable. Isn't that what we just discussed? A wise person cannot come back down to the worldly matters. Why? Because when the knowledge is firm, that means I am whole and complete, there's no need to rejoice over getting what I like or losing what I like, or not getting what I don't like. Why? Because one's full. So there's no dependence on objects. Okay. So now let's explain this verse in detail. So a jnani, a wise person, I'm going to ask, by the way, the whole class afterwards, the difference between a jnani and ajnani. A jnani and a ajnani, right? To have a conversation. So pay attention to the attributes. So a jnani, a wise person, after gaining self-knowledge, continues to live in the world, right? This is something this is a reality. A wise person is still here. Because the mukti, jivan, when I say jivan mukti, liberated, the mukti is here and now, not after death. So obviously when one fully assimilates knowledge, self-knowledge, their mukti, their liberation, is here and now. So what this verse is going to talk about is the attitude by which this jivan muktaha, this liberated person, deals with things which are coming and going in their life. So the first thing that we have to know is a jnani, a wise person, is governed by the same laws and orders that a ajnani is governed by. No one's an exception. And they're governed, both a wise person and a non-wise person are governed by 3 principles. The first one is deshaha, D-E-S with a line on top, A-H, deshaha. Deshaha is surroundings, environment, people, nation. Think about it. Everyone, no matter who, wise or unwise, is still living in a country, is still subject to the environment, still subject to air pollution, still subject to noisy neighbors, still subject to electricity going out of order, still subject to having to pay the rent, still subject to being hungry, still subject to a environment that is as pleasing as is for the next door neighbor. Same thing, no exception. The second principle is kalaha, K-A, that's a long A, K-A-L-A-H, kalaha. Kalaha is time. So time is flowing for everyone.
Time, yeah.
Yeah, time. Tick, tick. So whether it's a wise person or a non-wise person, for both of them, time is flowing. That means the body is decaying whether they like it or not. Except that jnani wouldn't even care whether the time is flowing. Okay. The third principle is prarabdha. That's a long A. Prarabdha. This is an important word.
How do you spell it?
P-R, long A, R-A-B-D-H-A. Prarabdha. Okay, prarabdha varies from individual to individual. This is the only thing that varies amongst these 3 principles. Nation is the same. Okay, you can go outside a different nation, different culture, but we'll just stick to one nation. The nation is the same. Would you like a pen and paper? Okay. The nation is the same and the time is the same. The environment is the same, the time is the same. But what's different is one's prarabdha karma. This is what determines whether one person in their 70s feels fantastic and the person next door feels very achy and broken and sore. This is also what determines whether one wakes up and suddenly has back pain out of nowhere. You did nothing yesterday. Totally fine. Suddenly I wake up with back pain. Where is this coming from? Prarabdha karma. Do you notice that? Suddenly we wake up and suddenly certain situations arise in the day. Totally unexpected. Maybe desirable, undesirable. It has nothing to do with yesterday, with our life. It just comes out of nowhere. That's called prarabdha karma. Okay, this varies from individual to individual and what makes every person different. And that's what makes or determines the experience of every individual in the world. One principle only, prarabdha karma. That's it. This is why you can have twins, and one twin is born with the same mom at the same time, with the same nutrients, and yet their life, if you look at them after they've grown up, is not as, let's say, successful financially or in their family or with their friends as their twin. Why? Because they got a different prarabdha karma, right? So same body but different personal karma. That's what prarabdha karma is, my personal karma. So, what we have concluded now, going through these 3 principles, is that the jnani, the wise person, is not an exception from these 3. That means a wise person also goes through ups and downs like anyone else, not an exception. And now the question is going to come up. If a wise person is also going through ups and downs, then what's the point of self-knowledge? Aren't we, here to get some benefit out of it? Jnanam, knowledge, I didn't say jnani, I said jnanam. Jnanam is knowledge. What kind of knowledge? Self-knowledge, direct knowledge. I am Atman. That's kind of jnanam. Jnanam doesn't change the situations in the world, because situations are vyavaharika. It's a order of reality which you don't control. You don't control the wind. You don't control your neighbors. You don't control how others feel about you. You don't control what others think about you. You don't control anything. You don't control how many oil spills or how many cleanups happen or what kind of policies happen in the country. We don't control any of that. So jnanam does not change the situation. It changes...
Your reactions.
Huh?
Your reactions.
Perfect. Yeah, it's on the right track. It changes, it only gives strength. I'll rephrase it. It only gives strength to have a balanced response to situations. We spoke about this, remember? How a wise person reacts in the real world. It only gives one strength and balance to respond to ups and downs. That's it. Okay. When prarabdha, for example, when prarabdha karma delivers a positive experience, a jnani is not carried away. A jnani doesn't get lost in this positive experience. They just accept it and they know this is only because of my prarabdha karma. It's going to come and go. Have you ever seen the winners of Millionaire? When they win $1 million and then the fireworks and they're like so happy, so ecstatic. Okay, so a wise person would just see this as, they will share the same joy, but it wouldn't be so meaningful because the wise person knows this is going to come and go. It's not really important. So they don't get carried away by the immense joys of being free or winning $1 million, whatever that metaphor can stand for. Maybe some, interesting deal or something. Because it all comes and goes. What arrives departs. That's the law. There's no exceptions to this. Okay. So the wise person doesn't get carried away. And number two, the wise person appreciates the favorable situation. This is actually supporting that point. The wise person appreciates favorable situations, but does not get hooked or addicted to favorable situations. This is the big difference between a wise person and an ignorant person. Now, when I say addicted, that means when someone's addicted, it means what? I'm not prepared to lose this experience. I'm not prepared to lose what I'm addicted to. And if I lose it, then there's pain. That's addiction. So not addicted means what? The jnani is prepared to lose the experience because the jnani, why? Is already full. We spoke about the ocean metaphor. Whether the ocean is dried up, the ocean doesn't say, oh, I'm empty. Because all of the water that's dried up is where? In the clouds, in the rivers. But what's the essence of that water? It's still H2O. And all of that water eventually returns back to the ocean. So for that reason, a wise person does not it's just logic. There's no need to get addicted. It's going to come and go. Rainy season, all the water is back into the ocean. Dry season, the ocean may be 1 millimeter less, but the ocean doesn't miss. Why? Because it knows it's all coming back to me. Or what about the cloud? What if you're a cloud? Is there any reason to feel separate from the world?
I was just thinking it's probably wrong to think of it as the ocean as being the fundamental point, because it's the whole cycle.
Yeah.
If you're the cloud, and it's just the other attributes which within water could end up all as cloud and no ocean, makes no difference.
Exactly.
Or if it's in the ground, in groundwater in Artesian Basin, that's where it is, because of the external attributes which mean it ends up there.
Yeah, okay, well, let's say you're groundwater. Well, what's inside you still? H2O. Is there any different from the H2O in the entire ocean? No. But if I'm the groundwater and then I say I'm groundwater, I want to be the cloud because being up there is much nicer, then of course I'm going to have problems. So that means, once again, we're shifting focus. It's always going to be the same point. Shift your focus. Okay, now, when we say he or she doesn't get elated, we're talking about na praharshyet. That means not carried away by situations. Na praharshyet. Na means not carried away. Okay, and the same applies to unfavorable situations. That means if something unfavorable happens to a wise person, then they don't have much, the recovery period is very quick. For example, if you know the Rama story, Rama was a king, or to become a king, was a man who everyone loved. And he was going to become the of Ayodhya. So he was about to become the king, but he wasn't what? He wasn't elated. He wasn't carried away. Na prasharyet. Okay? And then the next day, after some circumstances, it was revealed that he was not going to become the king. So next day he discovered that he's not going to become the king, and he also was exiled to the forest. Now everyone in Ayodhya was taking or looking at this as an unfortunate event. Everyone was depressed because everyone loved Rama. And Rama was the victim. Rama was the only one who was unaffected by this, and yet he was the victim. That's what we call na praharshyet, not carried away by the losses or the gains, no matter how huge. It's a big thing to become a king, right? One should be ecstatic. I'm the king, wow. And it's also a huge thing to be announced that I'm not going to become the king. And yet either way, I'm not moved by the news. Okay, that's a wise person. Whereas an ignorant person would take great loss of not being a king. You know, become very sad. And Lakshman, his brother, was angry. And Rama said something very beautiful. He replied, this is prarabdha karma. You know how Rama described prarabdha karma? In a very short, succinct statement. Any choiceless situation is your prarabdha karma. Any choiceless situation is your prarabdha karma. And since it's choiceless, I stop putting effort to try to change it, but effort to change the attitude. See the difference? Okay, so I'll explain what choiceless means. If the situation can't be changed, then I change my attitude. That's my backup plan. So I try to change the situation, and if I discover that I can't change the situation, then the backup plan is to change the attitude towards the situation. So what is prarabdha karma? Because I said not any choiceless action. For example, accidental pregnancy. You think that's just an act? There's no accidents. Accident, I knew two friends, and they were, they married, but they had no intention of children, and they were just playing around, and then they call me and they say, she's pregnant. Were you careful? Absolutely. Were you super careful? Absolutely. So they had no choice. They were super careful. They did all they could, and it was a nice baby. Sore back. I didn't do anything. I'm exercising, healthy. Suddenly I wake up, sore back. Where did that come from? Your prarabdha karma. Totally choiceless. You had no choice. You didn't affect it. You didn't do anything. You were normal. You didn't even strain the day before. Just sore. Sore headache, migraine. Where does that come from?
So can you improve your prarabdha karma by changing your attitude?
Definitely. Yeah. I knew one more story. My friend had a successful business and is doing very well online. And a competitor, discovered this product and stole the product and rebranded the product to be use the exact same software, right? But rebranded the product to the point where you couldn't distinguish whether it was stolen. But only my friend knew it was stolen, right? And the my friend tried to tell the authorities that the product's being stolen. It's my product. But because the guy, the competitor, the thief, did such a good job, nobody believed that he stole the product. So my friend tried everything, and nobody believed him. And in fact, what happened was the competitor then told the authorities, including Amazon, eBay, Etsy, and a few more shopping channels, that his product is being sold illegally on those shopping channels. And eBay, Amazon, took down the original author's products, right? So my friend was thinking, my God, what's happening here? And he tried to do everything he could to persuade and give the evidence, pictures, screenshots, everything. Nobody believed him. So what happened? Because such a good job was done at copying the software. What happened was he basically lost 80% profits, and he could only sell on his website. He could no longer sell on other sites because he's now the criminal. So this person that I'm talking about is a good person, did nothing, no harm, did no damage to anyone, is offering a good service. And out of nowhere, no choice, he did all he could, and this happened to him. So this is what we mean. If you try all you can, your only option is to change your attitude about what happened. Yeah? So this is called prarabdha karma. Totally choiceless. It comes out of nowhere.
No, stop there. What happened?
Oh, he's doing now better than ever.
So you accept the situation?
He accepted, yeah.
And let me move on?
Yeah, he totally moved on because now he had more time on the website and he put more effort into the website, and so the website's doing a lot more sales. Yeah. Okay, another example,
Now the other person
is still selling.
would have the impact of his bad karma somewhere down the track.
Of course. But we don't know.
Yeah, that's what we're saying.
Is that's what would happen, isn't it?
That's how he's going to get his karma eventually. That means
Some stage, either this life or next life.
maybe if he's a merchant in the next life, someone will steal his, groceries and, siphon off his profits. So this is how karma works. There's no getting out of it. Another example is thunderstrike, right? Out of nowhere, a person walking and suddenly thunder strikes them. This is not an accident. This is their it's quite a big prarabdha karma, but nevertheless, it's like, boom. Another example is, this is a rather intense example, a plane crash. We usually think a plane crash, and we think, well, what about all those people, right? I know it's something that's a hard one to kind of muster, but the way and how karma is built is perfect. That means everyone in that unfortunate scenario happened to be sharing the same karma, and that was the perfect way to pay it off with a plane crash. I'm not asking you to believe this, but just think about it. Knowing that everything is controlled and everything is facilitated by intelligence, which makes no mistakes. Right? Okay. So what we talked about so far is one's attitude is different. So in other words, it's only possible. Why? Okay, so we talked about the attitude. So why is it possible? It's possible because of Brahmavit. Brahmavit is a knower of Brahman. That means when I know Brahman, I also know everything else. Because to know Brahman, you have to know about karma, you have to know about the gunas, the bodies. In other words, one who knows Brahman has no need to have look at things differently, right? They understand everything is coordinated perfectly. So because of Brahmavit, I'm able to have a different attitude. In other words, self-knowledge is the key to a different attitude. Okay, and this self-knowledge is discovered, or what self-knowledge does is discovering inner strength. So what does inner strength mean? Inner strength to handle these situations, comings and goings. Okay. Now, what we have to know is mere self-knowledge is not enough. Just having Jnana Yoga is not enough. Because you need conviction. This is a big word. Conviction means absolutely convinced that this is the case. That's what conviction means. Because we can easily just say I'm Brahman, everything's, if it's too hot, you can turn on the aircon. It's the knob on the right. Okay. So mere self-knowledge is not enough. It must be a conviction. If it's not a conviction, then in crisis, what happens is self-knowledge becomes useless. Right? Because we resort back to our primal needs, fight or flight. And intellect goes out of the window. So this means that self-knowledge has to come with conviction. And we'll talk about how to gain conviction, okay? Not yet. So in crisis, for example, family crisis, someone dies, a business is lost, profits suffer. In that crisis, if knowledge is not firmly established, then it's not going to be valid. One's not going to be established in Brahman. Right? It's going to be about suddenly the world is going to become more important than all of the self-knowledge which I've gained. And this is indicator of how well one is established in self-knowledge. When crises come, like the worst crisis possible, are you still completely, firmly established in yourself? Without any question. Are you still clear? Yeah. So this is a good indicator. Okay. So we can summarize what a wise person knows as, if the actions are choiceful, then try to change it. Right, this is a wise person. And if the actions are choiceless, then change your attitude. And also conviction means, okay, why would one have conviction in crisis? Because they understand why. This is prarabdha karma of this individual, of this janma, of this birth, causes and effects. Or if it happens to them, they're not going to ask, why me? That's a common question that we ask. Why me? Why not someone else? Don't we ask that often in one way or another? Like, why me? Why is this happening to me, O Lord? So this question just reveals that one is not firmly established in knowledge. Because if one were to know that everything is indeed perfectly coordinated, that this is just my prarabdha karma, then I'm not going to ask why me. I'm just going to say, thanks. Right? I surely don't like what happened, but I'm paying off the debts. Whether it's seen or unseen, whether it's this life or the previous life. This is what we call it firmly established. I don't lose track of this knowledge when I would otherwise say, why me? You understand? This is what we say conviction. Convinced. Okay, let's summarize. Okay, this sthira buddhihi. Where is it? Sthira buddhihi. So firmly established in... Okay, see, this is where the context changes. Buddhihi here is not intellect, but it's jnanam, knowledge. Firmly established in knowledge. Firmly means what? Firm. Doubtless. There's no doubt. That's what conviction is. I have no doubt about what I know. And the question that you ask, this is a good question to pose as a test, as an indicator, how well one is sthira, firmly established in buddhihi, in knowledge. Am I convinced of the fact that I am consciousness and not the body-mind? Think about it. Am I totally convinced, honestly, this is not something you answer to someone else, to yourself. Am I totally convinced that I am indeed consciousness and not this body-mind? It's all easy to speak about this in class and kind of, have conversations, but this is something you have on your private time. Am I totally, utterly, completely convinced, without a single doubt, that I am consciousness, awareness, Brahman, and not these three bodies, nor the five sheets?
I think the universe keeps testing us once we get to that point.
It does indeed, yeah. And it doesn't really matter if it keeps testing you, because if you're firmly established, how, which we will get to, mainly by
So you're asking
repetition.
that question to yourself.
Yeah, mainly by repetition, right? By constant study of knowledge, you get firmly established, which is conviction. Okay. So this means because every experience is taking its course through prarabdha karma, to say something is justice or injustice is unreasonable. I have no right to call something justice or injustice. Why? Because I don't know the story of that object. I don't know the story of that person. It seems like that person who was unjustly robbed, right? I call that, I don't know. I don't know the story. Honestly, I don't know what happened. Because I only see what I see, but I don't see what I don't see. So I have no right to call anything that is just or unjust. Only to see it as it is, without judgment. Why? Because to call it just or unjust is to not be firmly established in knowledge. Is not to know that indeed everything has cause and effect. Is not to know that everything has its history, called adrishtapalam, unseen consequences. Okay? So, the conclusion is, even jnanis, even wise people suffer. For example, Ramana Maharishi, at his last age, he got a few years, he got cancer on his left arm. And it was painful because he was carrying around an arm with a lot of pain. Unfortunately, some people, because they don't have the full knowledge, you know what they say? If one has gotten sick, they're not liberated. Because they attribute healthiness to a liberated person. How can a liberated person get cancer? Right? See the problem of ignorance? If I don't have the full picture, then I'm going to look at the world through these misconceptions and kind of dump my notions onto everyone. Why? Because my intellect is not fully educated. That's the problem with partial knowledge. Body belongs to what? Vyavaharika. Ishvara Srishti. So it doesn't matter if the person has gotten cancer or gotten sick. That belongs to a different order of reality. Why have they gotten sick? Because of their prarabdha karma. So in this case, Ramana's prarabdha karma, maybe from past life, was giving him cancer in this life. Okay? So this is what it means to be firmly established. Okay, and also what we're saying is that jnanam only gives, number one, inner strength to face a situation. Inner strength. Or to have proper, this is number two, or to have proper perspective of the situation. Number one, inner strength to face the situation. And number two, a proper perspective to see the situation in its true light. Think about how this applies in day-to-day. Let's say there's an argument in family between wife and husband. So in this case, whoever is firmly established is going to not be taken back by it so much. Right? That's the benefit. Or they're going to see it in a light that doesn't put it in their favor. Right? They just see it, well, this is just two people having a conversation, unable to agree. So because we cannot agree now, let's put this to a later date. Or let me see it from their point of view. Could I be not seeing it, what they're seeing? Could I be in my blind spot? Could they be in their blind spot? I don't know. Let's give it some time. It's completely objective versus that subjective, I'm right, you're wrong, let me prove my point. Okay? So this is the benefit of, or how a jnani sees the world. Okay, now let's talk about the 3 stages of Vedanta. This applies to any school of Advaita Vedanta. So, how does one get this jnanam, right? Knowledge, self-knowledge. Through a process called shravanam. We've heard this word before. So gaining or acquisition of knowledge is Shravanam. S with a line on top, Ravanam. Yeah, Shravanam. Now, we talked about conviction, right? And I asked, how do we gain conviction? We gain conviction through mananam. M-A-N-A-N-A-M. Mananam. Okay, so that means we get convinced by the knowledge that we've been taught. By how? Repetition. Asking and answering questions until there is no doubt left. This is stage 2, mananam. So how do you gain conviction? Asking questions and getting answers until there's not a single doubt left about anything whatsoever. So stage 1, I gain knowledge in class, in books, videos. Stage 2, I gain conviction of the knowledge which I have gained. In other words, I become totally convinced that this is indeed the case. This is the way it is. How? By asking questions in light of what I've learned and gaining answers by my own inquiry or from a teacher until no doubts are left. Through this process, you become sthira buddhiraha. In other words, you become firmly established in knowledge.
So that's the third stage.
No, I'm still going to get to the third stage. Even 1 and 2 brings you to the third stage, to sthira buddhiraha. Okay. Now, even after, so now we're on stage 3, right? 1, 2, done. Stage 3. Even after conviction, in other words, asking questions, even after that, there's a problem. The problem is we still have habitual tendencies. Even after I learn how to drive a car, I still drive the car with open windows, with loud music. I still cut corners, overtake others, drive too fast, drive slow, drive dangerous. Despite knowing how to drive a car, I still have habits that modify my behavior of driving the car. These habits have to go when it comes to sthira buddhiraha. If I don't get rid of these habits, then it's not going to be sthira. It's not going to be firm. It's going to be flaccid, right? One situation comes, one crisis, it's over. So, for this I need nididhyasanam. This is the third stage. Okay, what is nididhyasanam? Deliberately living this knowledge, which I've gained in Shravanam. Deliberately living it. Keeping the teaching going daily. Not once a week or once in a while, but daily. Okay, so constantly keeping my eye on this knowledge. Living an alert life, an alert life in regards to the subject matter being Jnana Yoga. Alert, constantly alert, looking around, questioning, how does this relate to me? What's my relationship to the environment? Who is the witness? Okay, constantly alert. It's not a joke. It's not, I just feel into it. It doesn't work like that. We'll do nididhyasana, more details, we'll do in chapter 6, which is coming up in about 2 sessions, meditation, Jnana Yoga. I'm going to now divide this statement into 3 stages. Number 1, and write this down, Brahmavit. That's a T at the end, not a D, it's a T. That's Sandhi, but without Sandhi, it's a T. Brahmavit. Brahmavit is the stage of Shravanam. Shravanam is gaining self-knowledge. And Brahmavit means knower of Brahman. In other words, to become a knower of Brahman, a Brahmavit, I need Shravanam to gain knowledge. Stage 2, Sthira Buddhihi, is Mananam. Okay? Mananam, in 1 word, 2 words, is eliminate doubt. You can put Q&A next to it, questions and answers. Sthira Buddhihi, we said, is firm knowledge. Okay, so I gain firm knowledge how? by mananam. What is mananam? Questions and answers until there's no doubts. Stage 3 is asammuto. It's actually asam, A-S-A-M, M long U-D-H-A. Asammutaha. Asammutaha. Asammutaha means free from delusion. Asammutaha is stage 3, nididhyasanam. In 2 words, eliminate habits. Nididhyasanam is eliminate habits or negative tendencies. If I don't get rid of negative tendencies, then I'm not going to be firmly established. There's no way. They're going to take over. They're going to take precedence. It's nature. Okay, now, when you follow these 3 stages...
You say eliminate habits. Could you also say...
Negative habits.
Recondition yourself.
Yeah,
So
okay.
you could have conditionings to be good or bad.
Recondition them. Yeah, replace them with positive. You can't really get rid of them all, of course, but you can replace them with positives. Refine them, yeah. Polish them. Okay, now stage 1, 2, 3 leads to what? Jivan muktaha. Okay, Jivan muktaha, liberated while living. Another way to say Jivan Mukta, there's actually so many ways. You can say Sthita Prajnaha. That means Sthita, well ascertained. Like Sthita means ascertained. Ascertained means well established. And Prajnaha means intelligence. In other words, very well established in intellect, in knowledge. Sthita Prajnaha. Or you could say Brahma Nishtaha. Nishtaha means grounded or inherent. In other words, I am inherent in my nature as a Brahman. These are all different words. But you can just put Jivan Muktaha. Simple. Okay, verse 21. Bahyas parsheshva saktatma vindatyatmani yat sukham sabrahma yoga yuktatma sukham akshayam ashnute. Verse 21. The one who sees mind is not attached to external sense objects and gains limited happiness in oneself. Okay, that means if one is not attached to external objects and has not established themselves in knowledge firmly, then they will gain happiness, but it's going to be limited. Whereas if that mind is endowed with self-knowledge of Brahman, then one gains happiness that does not change. Okay? Let's explain this. This is verse 21 now. So I'm going to summarize 18 and 20 again. Verses 18 to 20 talk about the transformation that a jnani enjoys as a result of self-knowledge. And this is divided into 3 parts. So write this down because it's a summary of 18, 19, and 20. Verses 18 talked about sama darshanam. Remember sama darshanam? You'll probably pick it up. Sama means same, and darshana means vision. In other words, vision of oneness. I see everything as the same. Sama darshanam, that's verse 18. That's summary of verse 18. Verse 19 summary is conquering mortality or fear of death. That's verse 19. And verse 20 summary is right perspective facing ups and downs. We just discussed that. Having the right perspective of ups and downs. In other words, what does this mean to have right? This is number 3. Right perspective means I climatize myself on the environment. Just like climatizing to hot weather or cold weather or loud noise. You eventually just sort of, it becomes white noise or, you're fine with it after some time. So a wise person has climatized to the whole world. In other words, their recovery period is shortened. That's the benefit of a jnani. An ignorant person, after an argument, it lasts 1 week. A wise person, it lasts 5 seconds. Or more realistically, we'll say 10 minutes. Okay, so let's just be realistic. A wise person has much shorter recovery period than a non-wise. Okay, now verse 21 talks about jnanis, ananda. That means the... Now in this context, I will gladly say ananda is happiness or one's cheerfulness. So what is the wise person's cheerfulness like? A wise person derives one's ananda from Atma. We can start like that. A jnani derives one's joy from himself or herself. In other words, one has learned to tap into their own ananda, into their own fulfillment. This is called purnatvam. Purnatvam. So purnatvam is fulfillment, one's fulfillment.
So learn to tap into their own Atma.
Atma, whose nature is ananda, because we said Satchit Ananda is, well, Satchit is ananda. In other words, ananda equals Atma, Atma equals ananda. Okay. While the ajnani, non-wise person, when I was doing a comparison, taps for their ananda from external objects, external sources. Now this is a problem, because if I'm dependent on somebody else's joy, if my joy is dependent on someone else, then they can blackmail me. They can use their power to withhold and control me. This happens in relationships, especially in young relationships, where the woman will, say, no for you tonight if you don't, fulfill my prarabdha karma, which has nothing to do with his prarabdha karma. In other words, but now because he doesn't want, to lose her love, because he depends on her love, he now goes against his swadharma to perform her prarabdha karma, so he violates his own swadharma because he doesn't want to lose her, because if he doesn't fulfill her own duties, he will lose her, but he depends on her. So the person's stuck. Problem. You see? This is the problem of not being firmly established and not knowing how to say no, right? Because I depend on objects and my whole existence depends on her love or his love. Okay. So all pleasures of external objects put together, I'm talking about all pleasures put together in the world, relative pleasures, are all contained in the ananda of Atma. This means that all the pleasures put together of all time, past, present, and future, they are inferior to the ananda of Atma. Why? Because they're all finite. If I am on a roller coaster having fun, I'm limited to just that kind of pleasure. If I'm eating a nice food, I'm limited to just that kind of pleasure. If I am having a nice conversation with a friend, I'm just limited to that kind of pleasure. So in other words, if I am chasing pleasures in sectors, I'm always limited, because if I'm pursuing this, I'm not pursuing that. If I'm pursuing this, I'm not pursuing that. Now, if I put all of this, that, put it all in Ananda of Atma, Ananda Atma is superior to all of them. Why? Because finite plus finite, right? Finite pleasure plus finite pleasure equals finite totality. So no matter how many pleasures you put in the universe, they're all still finite. But Atma is, where's the word? Akshayam. Akshayam is infinite Ananda. So Atmananda, we call this Atmananda, right? Jnani's Ananda, we say Atmananda, right? It's put it together. Atmananda, it's one word. That means your Ananda. Atmananda is superior to all anatmananda put together. Right? So your Atmananda is superior to all Anatmananda put together. Because all of the Anatmananda, not self, are subject to time and space. They end. They begin and they end. Okay. Now, Brahma Yoga. Where is it? Brahma Yoga. So when I have knowledge of Brahma Yoga, that means knowledge of Brahma, then I have Yuktatma. In other words, my mind is endowed in Brahma Yoga, right? Yuktatma, my mind. See, here Atma doesn't mean self, it means mind. That's how the context changes. So my mind is established in Brahma Yoga, and that leads to Atmananda. Okay? Because my mind is firmly established in Brahma Yoga, knowledge of Brahman. So, firm establishment in knowledge of Brahman leads to Anatmananda, which is Akshayam, which is infinite. So, what does this mean, practically speaking? This means continue studying, continue contemplating on this knowledge. And little by little, the freedom of self, of who you are, is known to you more and more. Right? Why is it not known to us so much at the beginning? Because we have too many notions which are covering that. So it's a gradual process. So this jnani that we're speaking of has we can call it an uninterrupted ananda supply. You know, uninterrupted power supply. As soon as the power cuts off, as soon as the people leave my party, for a non-wise person, suddenly I get depressed, right? Because now they all left me. I'm no more anyone to talk to. But for a jnani, for a wise person, instantly their UAS kicks in, uninterrupted ananda supply. In other words, whether there's a whole bunch of people in a jnani's life, they're appreciated. We might use the word appreciate at the beginning. They're enjoying it while it lasts. As soon as they all leave, including the closest family, UAP, uninterrupted ananda, UAS, uninterrupted ananda supply instantly kicks in, right? So in other words, they're never lonely. They're never not enjoying Atmananda, because the US, just made it up, UAS, whatever it is never not present, okay? Why? Because they're established in Brahma, because their Yukt Atma, their mind is established in Brahma Yoga, in knowledge of Brahman. Okay, just for example, if I say, when I say that all pleasures are in Atma, it's just like saying the word Australia, right? When I say Australia, I'm including what? All the nations, all the suburbs, all the people in Australia, all objects. So just by saying Australia, instantly I've included everything in Australia. Versus if I just say tree in Blackburn or St. Kilda, right? I'm just taking one little object. That's what we call a worldly pleasure, worldly ananda. But if I tell you Atmananda, it's like saying Australia. It includes all the joys of all the objects. When I say object, I'm also including person, people, family, one's own health, one's own well-being, right? So it's the same idea. And Atmananda instantly includes everything. So then the question is, why should I now put focus into trees, just trees? Let me just get my ananda from the bush, from the forest. Let me just get my ananda from friends, when I can just get my ananda from that which includes the friends, includes the trees, includes the sunshine, includes everything, right? So you can see how our focus changes. So, is the jnani going to miss...
Sex.
yeah, you could say that. Is a jnani going to miss pleasure that usually people will, enjoy? No. Because they're uninterrupted, ananda supply is always available. Right? Whether they're copulating or not, it doesn't matter because jnani is already full. So the barometer is, do I still feel full when I'm not getting what I want? If yes, then that's a good sign that you're sthira, right, firm in knowledge. Sthira buddhihi. So a jnani does not miss anything. That's the conclusion. Even if it stays or even if it comes. And we can summarize this as 2 points. Number one, a wise person is not interested nor obsessed in the world. I think asaktaha. There it is. Asaktaha. A-S-A-K-T-A. Asaktaha. This means not obsessed or not interested. And number two, a jnani doesn't hate anything. Just because they're not interested doesn't mean they hate things, right? They're just not interested. Why? Because they see the truth of all things. So, they're not obsessed and they're not... It's not that they're not interested because they hate things. It's just that they're not interested because they see the truth of the object, but they're also already full in their nature, right? Whereas a ajnani, a non-wise person, always misses something. Even if a person has $1 million, there's always $1,001,001 that the person will miss. Even if they have the greatest relationship, they're contemplating what would it be like to have a better relationship. Even if they're beautiful, like a youthful person, and they have fame, then there's always a way to get one more fan, as a musician, for example. So this game of wanting more never ends for an ignorant person who's constantly focused on the particularities, whereas the jnanis is like, as I said, Australia, you instantly include everything, right? Because this ananda for a jnani does not end. Okay, so jnani is not obsessed with the external world. This is the summary now. Number one, is not obsessed with the external world. And number two, the ananda, atmananda, is akshayam, is infinite. And because it is akshayam, infinite, they have no need to chase things in the world. Now, when I say ananda, I'm not talking about experiential ananda, right? This is very easy to now think. Are you talking about some kind of, like copulation kind of joy, right? As you said, sex kind of joy. Am I talking about? No, I'm not. Because that's all part of the body. That's all part of the body-mind intellect complex. This kind of ananda is freedom. Totally free from everything. You know that freedom when... Actually, I'll just use this example. Why do people have sex? If you think about it. Like if you just analyze it, just maturely analyze why people have sex.
Children. Get rid of the desire to have sex.
Perfect. To get... that's a valid reason. That's part of Vyavaharika.
Very rare, actually. That's true.
Yeah, that's Vyavaharika, valid reason, right? To keep the species going. Keep the species going. But if one abuses it, why do they abuse it? Because they're conditioned to associate pleasure to this activity. And by me performing this activity, I will get rid of this activity at least for 5 minutes. And that's what the person is motivated by, to be free of the desire to perform this activity. So that means we all inherently identify with freedom. Why? Because Brahman is Ananda, limitless. It's free of limitation. If I have a limitation to have sex, that's limiting Brahman to just that activity. And so in order to return back to my original nature, which is Ananda, limitless, I have to then get rid of this activity by performing it. The problem by performing it is it reinforces the vasana, and then it causes me to want to re-perform it again next time. So that method does not work. So you can see how the whole world inherently identifies with freedom. Actually, I was just looking at the epidemic in Zimbabwe. Is about 90% are unemployed, and most are high on a cough syrup. And the journalist was asking, so why do you take this? And they all say, because when I drink this cough syrup at a certain potion, it causes me not to be worried about idleness, right? I'm not worried about the world because they have nothing to do. They're totally unemployed. And when they drink this, it frees them from anxiety, from worry. So you can see, and the whole country, I'm talking, most of the country is in this epidemic. Because such a high unemployment rate, free me please from this concern of not having anything in life, and in order to free myself, I get high or I take drugs. So you can even see how innocently this permeates in this whole world in different ways. So the point is, we always apply action to free ourselves from that which is limiting Ananda. Verse 22. Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkhayo naya evate adyantavanta kaunteya nateshu ramate buddhaha. Okay. Because those enjoyments that are born of contact between the sense organs and the sense objects, the source of pain alone, are the source of pain alone, and have a beginning and an end. Arjuna, the wise person, does not revel in these objects. Okay, so let's talk about this. Then before we do, I will now summarize once again the entire chapter 5 quickly. See, we always get back to summary for the sake of repetition. So chapter 5, which we're doing now, is inner renunciation. Okay? So what we're studying now is inner renunciation or inner detachment. So the whole chapter 5 in the Bhagavad Gita is about inner renunciation or inner detachment. Question is, what does inner renunciation or detachment mean? The answer is being psychologically or mentally free or independent of the world. Psychologically, mentally free or independent of the world and all of its objects. That means one who is a sannyasi is still in the world with people in common situations, at work, in traffic, in rather uncomfortable situations physically, but inner is inside, completely detached or renounced by mere knowledge. In other words, they're not depending on situations to work out a certain way. You're not depending on your family to have a certain view about you. Like some of us do things to make our parents proud, right? Because they matter to us. So a jnani drops that need because that's another need. It limits ananda. Or some of us have a need to, look extremely, very pretty all the time. That's another need, right? Nothing wrong with being pretty, but all the time, 24/7, like we're nice clothes all the time. That's binding me. It's holding me down. That means if I don't look pretty, if I am not knowledgeable, if I'm not smart, if I'm not educated, if I don't have a certain status in society, certain amount of money in the bank account, a certain house, a certain position in the eyes of others, then I don't feel free. This is ignorance. This is ajnani. Right? So that means we're freeing ourselves from this constant need to depend on the worldly situations. This is called samsara. Right? I'm depending and I'm entangled in the world. So, verse 22 and 23 that we're about to do talks about two things. Number one, discipline required for self-knowledge. And two, mental preparation required for self-knowledge. So discipline required and mental preparation required for self-knowledge. In other words, chapter 22 and 23 is more about what to do, action. So this is called Jnana Yoga Sadhana. That's what we're going to discuss. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.